So, Jason, I'm ready to hear more of your story.
Me too. I'm really excited to share. This is so much fun.
Okay, good. So, where we left off last time was you were on your way to college.
hmm
So, what happened in college?
So, my parents, my whole life, since I was a kid, 5 years old, I would always argue back with them. And they would be like, well, this is great. You could become a lawyer and make a lot of money. So that was like the reoccurring message my whole life. And I repeated that, like, yeah, I'm going to be a lawyer. And then, in high school, things took a turn. I was hanging out, having fun, partying. And, I was always very philosophical, always wondering, like, what's the point of this? So one day, me and my friend decided to get some LSD because we knew a lot of people in my school were taking it. And we took it. We had no idea what to expect. And before you know it, like, we're like in this realm of philosophy, talking and just questioning everything. Like, it was like one of the most mind-blowing experiences I had had up until that point. And I realized there's more to life than what we've been told, the purpose of life is. And also, I became fascinated with the mind. Like, what is happening? Like, what is this tiny chemical doing that's making me completely see the world differently? So it started off as like an innocent little experimentation, but then I kept wanting to go back to that realm and like taking notes. I mean, I was doing great in school. I was like, my mind was working so well. But one day I took it, and for whatever reason, I was with someone who was nervous. And before you know it, I'm having a full-blown panic attack.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was a panic attack at the time, though. And then, sure enough, it finally ended. And I thought everything was fine. And a few days later, I go to sleep and I wake up with another panic attack. And I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on? And then I just felt like I was losing grip with reality. And I feel like I messed up my mind. Like, what did I do? So I told my parents, and they were like, okay, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to go to a therapist, but one who would understand this type of experience, someone who's kind of experimented themselves. So they find me someone, and this man had polio. So he had done some experimentation, but then somehow later in life, he got polio and got paralyzed from the neck down. So this guy became a therapist, and just talking to him and listening to his story, and he taught me like breathing. Like, this is early on. I'm like 17 years old. And at that moment, during that transition, I started to get better. And I decided I want to be a psychologist. I want to work with people one-on-one like this. I want to help people who have anxiety and people who want to just live a better life.
Wow. So how'd your parents take it that you weren't going to be a lawyer anymore? You're going to be a psychologist?
Well, they were okay with that because they were like, okay, you get a PhD, you have a prestigious job, it won't be as much money, but they were like, okay, they approve of that.
Nice. So, what happened in college? So, you went to college to be a psychologist. What happened?
So I was like I said, it wasn't just about for me getting a degree. Like, I was fascinated with the mind. I took psychology in high school also, while I was going through all this. So I learned about Freud and Jung, and I actually got into the beats, the hippies. I was listening to the music, the Beatles, all the psychedelic stuff. So I wasn't taking any more LSD, but I was reading about like all how it changed the culture and some Buddhism. I was dabbling in it already, and meditation. So when I got to college, I'm like, this is like most of the kids wanted to party. I had gotten the partying out in high school. So now I'm
Right.
like, I want to learn everything about the mind. And I saw my professors as like these heroes. I was in their office hours. I was getting the top grade in every class. I basically finished all of my psychology major requirements by sophomore year. So 2 years, I finished all the requirements.
Wow.
And I was like working. I got accepted to this undergraduate thesis program. So I'm like, I'm all set to go. It's like a 2 year program. I was in a lab, so I was on track to go to grad school, and everything was on track. And what happened was I started to realize that psychology moved at this time. It had moved so far away from its roots in psychoanalysis, like Freud, all the stuff that was exciting to me, working with somebody one on one. and it shifted to behaviorism, which is basically treating people like animals. And it just, I was losing interest in it. And then I'm working in labs. And during the summers, I got a paid job back in New York, like doing, because I went to school in Albany, SUNY Albany, upstate. So I'm back in New York City working in a lab surrounded by psychologists and just realizing like, I thought this would be like I mean, what I later found out is a Buddhist monastery. People sitting around talking about the mind all day long. Instead, like it's just like a job for them. And like, and they, you hear that cliche, like the psychologists are like the most messed up people themselves, like they're treating other people, but they're not treating themselves. And that's a big premise of Eastern philosophy. Like you don't become a guru, a lama, a teacher just by studying and getting a degree. You had to work on yourself first and foremost. So that always was resonating with me. So I lost more and more interest in it. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm reading On the Road by Jack Kerouac and this book, Dharma Bums, and it's all about Buddhism. So I'm just becoming more and more obsessed with Buddhism. And then one day I'm driving home from the lab in the summer where I was working, and I hear this guy on the radio, the college radio station, and he's talking all about the meaning of existence and like, what does it mean to exist? And I'm just driving my car home. This is like probably like 1999. So I'm just driving my car home, and I'm like, that was really interesting. Like that's what I'm interested in. And then forgot about it. A week later, it was a Friday, I remember driving home again. I hear that same guy talking, and I'm like, I got to find out what this is. So this is early internet. Somehow I found the radio station, got the schedule, and I found out the guy's name was Alan Watts. So
Oh,
now he's really popular on YouTube. Like people clip and Instagram, people are clipping Alan Watts. And I found out, and I was going to like the bookstores and can you order me books on Alan Watts, going to the library, just reading everything he said. And one of the things he said that stuck with me was, pre-industrial cultures, these primitive societies spend 80% of their time in spiritual pursuits and 20% in work. And I thought, what? All I knew was I'm going to graduate in less than 2 years. And after that point, I'm going to be working 50 hours a week. They told me, I thought being a professor would be easy work. They're like, it's a minimum 60 hours a week and you're going to get paid nothing. And I was like, I thought that was my destiny. And so I was like, I wish I was in this primitive society. I kept thinking, I'm born in the wrong place, wrong time. So then I got this thought because I heard Alan Watts learn Japanese and went to Japan and studied Buddhism there. So I'm like, I'm going to do the same thing. That was my logic. Somehow, so I'm like, let me just graduate, get good grades, and then when my parents are not expecting it, I'm going to take off and go to Japan, So so I'm in the lab. I go back, it's junior year, and I go back to the lab. It's like the first day back there, and I'm like, I don't want to be here. Like I can't do this another day. And that's usually what it takes for me to make the change. So I'm reading through the classes, the class listing, and I saw that I needed this requirement for cultural understanding credit or something. And I saw Japanese. I turned the page to Japanese language, and I remember, oh, I was going to go to Japan and become a monk and learn Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, and I saw it fulfilled that requirement. I'm like, why not? Let me just go check out the class and see how I like it. And I went there and I liked it, and I'm like, it's a 5-credit class. So it means every day.
was the requirement 5 or 3? Did you just need a 3?
It's for the culture. Yeah, I just needed a 3. Yeah.
And you went for a 5.
Well, yeah. And it was like, and again, I finished my major. I could have taken the easiest classes.
Right.
I was done.
That's what I'm saying.
I had
Yeah.
straight 4.0 GPA. I could have just cruised. So learning Japanese is like learning physics or chemistry. This is hard. Like Japanese is very hard. So I signed up for it. I loved the challenge, and, a semester went by. It went great. I got an A, and everything else in my life was cruising. I was showing up in the lab, but I was just really not tuned out, reading Buddha. Oh, and I took a Buddhism class too. So I took a college level Buddhism class. And then at the end of my first class, I talked to my teacher. She's like, yeah, you should take, she's like, you planning on taking more? I'm like, yeah, I want to take another semester. She's like, great. And I took another Buddhism class. And then the second semester, my teacher was like, why don't you go to Japan? And I was like, oh, it's my senior year and I'm working on a thesis. I won't be able to do it. So then I'm like, maybe I'll go for one semester. So I apply for one semester, everything goes through. I told my professor, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to compress my thesis into one semester. And they were like, okay, it's going to be hard work for you, but if you want to do it, fine. And then I find out that I was eligible for the scholarship, which was a full ride, airfare, everything by the Japanese government to go spend a year in Japan. So I'd be basically making money to go there. And but they said you have to go for 1 year. So I thought to myself, this was like a real crisis because I
Right.
was a people pleaser and I didn't want to disappoint the professor, but I was up all night just thinking about this, what to do, what to do. And I finally just decided like if I get that scholarship, I'm just going to go. So sure enough, I got it, went to the professor and told him I'm not going to be there. And that was it. And then I left remembering feeling like this big weight had been lifted off of me.
So you made the right decision.
Yeah, I knew I made the right decision. And I remember reminding myself, again, I'm like 20 years old, reminding myself, if you ever have to listen to your heart or not, listen to your heart.
Right. Wow. Wow. So you go to Japan. Wow.
Yeah.
And you're on scholarship. So what was Japan like?
Oh man, it was amazing. It was like, I was in an international school, so there was like 200 kids from every country in the world, like you could imagine. Like Hong Kong, Thailand, Australia, and it was great. It was really so much fun and sightseeing, and I just loved being in Japan. It was just such an amazing experience, and I really wanted to immerse myself in the Japanese culture. So I lived with a Japanese family. I really kind of separated myself from the other exchange students. And I again remember my mission was to go to Japan to meet like this Mr. Miyagi Zen master, and I would have enough Japanese to become his student, and he was gonna like whack me in the head until I became enlightened. But sure enough, I got into the language and the partying, and I got a girlfriend, a Japanese girlfriend, and the cooking, and I just kind of fell back into like, okay, I'll become a Japanese translator and I'll make a lot of money.
Where
And
was the Buddhism? You took Japanese and Buddhism.
yeah,
Where was the Buddhism?
and I was even taking Buddhism my third semester now in Japanese university. I took another Buddhism class. So I'm learning it from a scholarly point of view, which was a great foundation. But you'd go to the Buddhist temples in Japan, and it's like a tourist destination. It's not what it was here. It's kind of like here, people call themselves Christians
Yeah.
or Jews, but they're not
Yeah.
really practicing.
Yeah.
It's just an identity. So Japan is a very Buddhist culture, but very, very few people are practicing it. It's just like celebrate the holidays. It's like here basically.
Wow. Wow. So
So
that
yeah,
would be a disappointment.
yeah, but it was okay because I was having so much fun and it wasn't meant to be at the time.
So you immersed yourself in, you didn't really hang out with the students, immerse yourself in the culture. Like, what were you doing in the culture?
I was doing like a lot of like the boring stuff. I was just hanging out with a bunch of Japanese people, like karaoke and like cooking and just riding bikes, just really having fun and and I was teaching some English and I met this woman, Miss Onaka, and we would have these great conversations all the time and we start talking about food. And keep in mind, I talked last time that I've been cooking since I'm 7 years old. So the
Right.
whole time I'm in Japan, I'm loving going to the supermarket because in America, in New York, I would go to the Asian market, right, to get like Asian groceries. In Japan, every market's an Asian market. So I was just having so much fun throwing things together, learning things here and there. But then Miss Onaka is like a very she comes from like a well-to-do Japanese family. So very traditional, like it's very important. Like if you want to be a good wife, if you want to get a good husband, you learn the traditional arts, Now it's different, but she comes from that old school. So she's like, "Oh, Jason, I can show you how to cook that." So before you know it, I'm learning these like really traditional Japanese dishes in the kitchen with her, like that she learned from her grandmother. So that was really fun. I just started, really learning Japanese food amidst all this. And that planted the seed for me to realize, like, you can go to a cookbook and you could learn a recipe, or you can again learn from the lineage, this tradition that's gone back and all the nuances. So that was an amazing, like, leveling up of my culinary experience.
So the masters are the grandmas.
Exactly,
So
exactly,
you found a food master, maybe, which was the grandmas.
exactly. Like you'll see like a lot of like the famous chefs are men,
Uh-huh.
but if you want to learn like the traditional stuff, it's a thing that in these traditional cultures was passed down from female to female, from mother to
Nice.
daughter. Yeah.
Nice. So did you do any other traveling while you were over there
Yeah,
in Japan?
so yeah, I went to Thailand, which again, I'm like, oh, the Buddhist thing, and Thailand is much more overtly, actively Buddhist. Still not like what I was looking for, but it was a great. I love Thailand and just the freedom of the culture. And I also traveled to China. I spent like 2 months traveling China and Hong Kong. So yeah,
Wow.
got to really experience Asia, and I just such an amazing experience. Like unlike most people, like spend like a 10-day tour. I'm like spent a total of 2.5 years in Japan and like 2 months in China, like a couple weeks in Thailand. So I really
So
got
did
to.
you end up with a degree after 2.5 years? Did you like what happened? What
Oh
would you
yeah,
end up
so
with?
so I wound up with from my university in America like a double major in psychology and East Asian studies. So
Okay.
Japanese basically, and a minor in biology. I had no
Wow.
credit for it. Yeah, so yeah, that was my whole experience there, and then I came back to New York City.
Okay.
Not a Buddha. I didn't find a Buddhist master,
Right.
and like that early influence. Even though in my heart I was like, didn't I wanted to find a way out of getting the corporate job, of getting into that world, like having to work just to live. I was really trying to find it, but I came back and I said, you know what? Like I could speak Japanese fluently. I can read and write it very well. I passed a proficiency test, like highest level. I'll come back. I'll be in New York City. I'll work for a Japanese company, and I'll get a job where I'm translating and hopefully for a video game company because I always like video games. So I'm like, if I could translate video games, it won't it would be a fun life.
So what did you
Still
end up
not
doing?
so so I come back and I wound up getting a job at this company called Itoen, which is a tea company. So
Okay.
basically, like they have it now in America, thanks to us. I was part of like the group who brought it here. But in Japan, you can get unsweetened tea in a bottle. Like here, like you get iced tea, it's always sweetened. So in Japan, one of the most popular beverages you can purchase is unsweetened tea in a bottle, like high quality green tea in a bottle. They drink a lot of green tea in Japan. So it's just funny. I always thought, even when I was there, I'm like, I wish they sold this in America. I'm applying for jobs, and I got this interview, and it turns out to be Itoen, this like that company. So it was like a sales merchandising job, not much speaking Japanese, but it was fun, and I got to travel all over New York City, basically doing sales, going into health food stores and just different delis and showing them the product. You want to carry this, and it was a lot of fun to be outdoors most of the day, making good money and getting to see, like, really get to see all of New York City.
What else? Was there anything else you were doing?
Yeah, so so I was a very type A personality.
Okay.
I was just on fire. Like, um, because I took all, like I said, after the whole LSD experience, it made me like really a good student. It made me like, from having that setback, I said to myself, like, whatever I do, I'm going to put my heart into everything. So I became a 4.0 student. Then I went to Japan. I learned Japanese. Oh, I didn't mention this one part. So I went to Japan and you could take a jump test in spoken Japanese, but I said, I'll like basically skip a year of Japanese. And I said, I want to take the written also. Like nobody's ever done it. And I passed it. I passed the spoken and the written. So, I mean, whatever, I was just so good at putting my, like, just not in a good way though, because I stressed myself out. I made myself sick doing this. I was not at this point into the health as much as I am now. But so again, I was doing great at my job, like really good at sales. And then I went to this Japanese cultural event, and I met this punk rock Japanese woman with like bleach blonde hair, and like she looked like an anime woman, and she had this company called New York Tokyo, and she brought cultural events like Japanese culture to New York. So I was like, I want to meet her. And she's like, but I wound up like kind of interning with her, like volunteering basically.
Okay.
And we put together two events. I was part of two events, bringing Japanese video games and culture to a place in New York City where there's going to be DJs and music and like young people and dancing and video games. And like I was talking to Sony, I got sponsorships from video game companies. So I'm doing this after my work, you know? and then um and then I was also got a freelance opportunity to work for this company in Tribeca, which is it was like before YouTube. It was kind of like an early YouTube, like streaming video. So I was putting Japanese subtitles on these streaming videos. So I was doing like three different things. And then someone had my resume. It wound up at NHK, which is the BBC of Japan,
Oh,
like the national news agency, their New York branch. The head video editor wanted to leave his position, and he caught wind of me that I spoke Japanese and that I did video editing. And he wanted to meet me, and he basically said, I want to train you to replace me. So this would have been my dream job at the time, because it's basically like in a Japanese company, like literally on like the 70th floor of a building. Like this, this was like, I was like 22 years old, 23. Like this would have been like my real climb in the corporate ladder, like really prestigious job. But it would have been insane in retrospect, like working for a Japanese company. They have completely different, expectations. Like you go home when they tell you you go home. Like you don't work a 9 to 5. But I was starting to burn out. I was starting to burn out and also another factor is spiritually, I was burning out. That was the biggest one. And that's been the interesting theme throughout my whole life, which led me to the LSD, which led me, to go to Japan. It's always this seeking for the spiritual teaching, for the spiritual master. So I was realizing like the whole time I'm happy I'm climbing, my parents are proud of me, but I'm like, this is moving. This is like, I want to travel the world. Like I'm trying to figure, I'm trying to find my master kind of thing, find the teacher. And so I'm reading a lot of books like the Celestine Prophecy and like Carlos Castaneda. Have you ever heard of Carlos
yeah,
Castaneda? Yeah, so I'm
absolutely.
reading all these books and I'm just like, so part of me is like, I want this. And so then all of a sudden I get a call from my mother. I'm in the middle of a meeting at work and I get a call and she told me like, your father left, which was the last thing I would have expected from my parents, So I'm just got my feet on the ground, moved out, doing great at work. So that started a process of me saying like, what am I doing? Like I'm here trying to impress them, and they're like, they don't have it together, like and they're separating. And my sister also in the next month, her and her husband separated. So my whole family was just, and I was just, no one's paying attention to me. So I'm like, this might be the perfect time to travel, like this, now that everybody's distracted with their own stuff, like maybe I could just, like instead of trying to impress them, just do what I really want to do. So that's what I
Well,
did.
it really sounds like a fork in the road moment where it's
Exactly.
like I could be doing everything that my parents and everybody here in America wants, or I could be doing what I want. And you had this great job offer,
Oh yeah.
but you were getting burnt out, and then you're seeing kind of where your life might have gone because you're
Mhm.
watching other people. So, did you ever give America a chance, like travel around America?
Yes, actually. Before I got super deep into that corporate world, I took a road trip from New York, Florida, New Orleans, and I did some California. So I did get to see it.
So after you came back from Japan,
Yes, after Japan.
okay, and what'd you think?
I mean, now I love traveling America, and I find the beauty in there's so much to see in America. But at the time, again, I've been seeking this mystical experience, like this spiritual master.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I did not find that. I was like,
So
okay,
then,
great, I saw America. Like I want to see the world.
so where'd you go?
So the first thing I did after leaving the corporate world was the whole that whole New York world was going to Egypt and Israel and Cyprus because I had met a lot of people in New York from Egypt. So I'm like, okay, I'm reading these books about the secrets of the pyramids. So I'm like, that's got to be where I'm supposed to go. Like that's where I'm going to meet the spiritual master. It's going to be in, the Middle East where it all started.
Yeah.
So I went there and sure enough, I met again, I always meet the local people and by the way, everywhere I'm going, I'm looking for the grandmothers. So I did that in Thailand, I did it in China, now I'm in Egypt. And I just love like the more I traveled, the more I started going with no agenda. Just just like going, like let me find the local people, let me go to the youth hostel. Like this is before the phones, by the way.
Yeah.
So you go to a youth hostel and you meet other travelers and you have these amazing experiences like, oh, you should go check out this small town and check out this restaurant and talk to the owner here. So it just felt like such an adventure. Um,
Oh,
so although I didn't find like the spiritual master, the teacher, there's a lot of commercial stuff they're trying to sell you. I did get the spirit of just humanity, like the like learning that when you go on your travels and you trust, you meet the right people. So that was my teaching. But again, I saw the pyramids, I saw cool stuff, and I got to see different ways of living away from the type A personality. Like my friend who lives in Cyprus, like they have lemon trees growing in front of their house. They have us every day in the middle of the day. They take 2 hours off of work to eat, go back to eat with their families, and take a nap. And I'm like, it just made me realize more and more how crazy America was.
well, it's closer to what Alan Watts was talking about.
Exactly, exactly.
Nice.
So so I came back from there, back because okay, so my parents actually got back together.
Okay.
So I had planned to take a a train ride all across Europe. That was going to be my grand trip. But then I get a call from my sister that our parents separated again. So I decided to come back. Also, my heart was telling me I'm not going to find my spiritual master in Europe. Like I got to go to like Asia or like South America.
Okay.
So I come back and the funny thing is like I didn't know where I wanted to go. So my mother was like in the process of like she was all alone in the house. She wasn't happy with me. She thought I was crazy. And but she was running around. So I just came back to my place and I was figuring out where I'm going to go next. And I had saved a lot of money from all this work. I saved a lot of money. That was the
So
whole
you
thing.
didn't have to go back to work or
I didn't
anything?
have to go back to work for a while. I had
Okay.
saved money from even Japan. So
Okay.
I've been saving and saving. So I'm trying to figure out where I want to go. And I had narrowed it down to like Costa Rica, which I thought would have been like this super peaceful nature place, or China to learn like Chinese medicine and like Qigong, like trying to find the spiritual master. Because I was looking for health, physical health, and like spiritual meaning. Those are the two things. Because keep in mind, I, I'm I was not trusting the American medical system, you know?
Right.
So I knew I wanted to try to take the health in my own hands. So again, everything I'm doing is reading books at this point, not meeting a real master or a system. So I was looking at Peru. I was looking at Peru. So I wind up in Chicago for a family event to meet like family I've never even ever met before. And I had a friend who was living in Chicago at the time. So I met up with him one night and we're going for a walk and we pass by this building and he's like, "Oh, my friend lives here." He rings the bell. Person answers. It wasn't his friend, but his roommate was there who he knew also. So he came down and I see a guy and a girl and they said they were from Peru. And I was like, I
Okay.
can't believe it. I was literally just thinking, I want to go to Peru. And they were like, "Oh my God, you should go to Peru." I'm like, "I heard it's dangerous." "Oh, no, no. We're going to introduce you to all these people. You're going to be fine. You're going to have the best time of your life. You got to go here. You got to go here." I'm like, "Okay, okay, okay, great." So I just got that message. Like, I think I'm going to go to Peru. And I start messaging these people and they're introducing me to people. Before you know it, I had a place to stay for free, my own place. And I was in Lima to start off and like that was how that adventure began. And I went there like again, I'm so fed up with the American system, like completely. And I was like, I'm gonna just travel South America. I'm gonna find the spiritual teacher, or I'm gonna die in the process because there's nothing for me to go back to, you know? So sure enough, I get there and Lima is a big city, but what was cool is they had a maid who lived there, who did the cooking and the cleaning, going to the market. So again, you know me, like learning the traditional food. So I'm going to the market and I'm learning Peruvian food. It was so much fun and learning to do salsa dancing. And I just really loved just the vibe, the Latin culture, how the families got along and just everybody partied all the time. Like here we sit around and talk politics. You go to a party in South America, like they're dancing, the kids, the grandparents, it's just felt great. But it wasn't like the spiritual thing. That was in the Sacred Valley. That's in Cusco.
Cusco is the sacred, that's in Peru.
That's in Peru. That's the Machu Picchu. So Lima is on the coast. It's like, you know, it's a big city. It's like the capital, like restaurants and surfing, beaches. Cusco is this ancient city. And that's where like the shamans are and like this deep spiritual tradition was out there.
So
So that
when did you go there? How long until
so
you went there?
I spent about a month and a half in Lima.
Okay.
And then I went there. And again, all my friends in Lima, they had friends for me there. So I met this guy, Paco, who grew up in Lima. He was like a party kid, but then he got in touch with his roots, wound up in Cusco, and he was training with these shamans. So I had this amazing guy who spoke great English, who grew up in the city, but now he's going deep, like really, really genuinely respecting these teachings. So he took me to like secret Inca trails and temples. And I did the 4 day Inca trail going to Machu Picchu. I mean, it's just beautiful, like, you know, ancient wonders of the world. Like no one knows how they built this structure and just learning and meeting so many fellow travelers. And at this point of my trip, I'm reading like the Theosophists and I'm reading about the chakras and all these different things along the way. And meeting shamans and hanging out with these shamans, doing ceremonies with them, and yet and asking questions, but still not finding that spiritual teacher. And then after Peru, I traveled Chile and Bolivia. And then when I get to Argentina, I'm like, let me push this to the limit. I'm not even gonna take any buses. I'm just gonna hitchhike the whole way. So I hitchhiked from one part of Argentina all the way to Patagonia in the bottom through hitchhiking with like I just said like you know like how do I find the spiritual teacher? Like I just need to surrender. So it was amazing though because I realized then you're never alone. You're like anytime I needed something, the person would show up. So I'm living this incredible spiritual experience because in Cusco, I didn't mention Cusco is a magical place. So the time I spent there just pushed me over the edge. Remember, I said like the ancient cultures, they spend 80% of their time
Yeah.
spiritual pursuit. I reached a point of no return in Cusco, and I said, "There's no way I can go back to the corporate world. Like I'll never be normal again. Like this is it for me. I've seen
Okay.
too much." So then I thought, how far away from New York City and Tokyo can I get? I've seen Shanghai, I've seen these big cities, and I've seen how unhappy everybody is. And I said, how, what would it be like to see the exact opposite extreme? So while I'm in Argentina, someone's like, you want to see some really like remote stuff? There's a 3 hour bus ride to get to this town. So I go there and it's so simple. It was great, but it was like there was some tourists there, but it was just great. We just nothing to do every day. What are we going to do today? I don't know. Well, we have lunch in a couple of hours. You could read a book. It just felt like, like, wow, like, because people growing up in New York, people in New York City, like everywhere in America now, nonstop busyness, nonstop. So then they were like, you want to see really remote? There's another village. You have to
This
walk.
remote place was
Yes,
telling you about a more remote place.
yes. You have to walk 3 hours. You can't even take a car there. So I get my backpack. I walk 3 hours to this remote village, and it was just beautiful. Like, I don't know, maybe 20 people living there. And,
Wait, how far
tourists,
did you walk? How far did you walk?
3 hours, 3 hour walk.
Okay. Wow. And so
And
20 people.
20 people living there. There was a couple other tourists who came, like me, and no electricity. And they got animals, they got growing food, but for the most part, they're literally just hanging out. Like there's not that much work to do. You grow the food, you take care of this, and the grandmother and the children. It's just a really maybe more than 20 people, but it was really small and no electricity.
How long did you stay there?
I stayed there like maybe 3 nights, two, three
Wow.
nights. But I just remember, and like at night, they sing music every night. Like it's just, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, this is as remote as it gets. They have nothing, and these are like the happiest people I've seen. They're making jokes all the time. They remembered me, like they were like very warm, and so that was kind of like a very pivotal moment when I realized, like the bigger the city, this climbing to get to a bigger city, more productivity was not the answer.
Wow.
So this only left. So then, I was starting to get like homesick, even like physically sick from all the traveling. I went back to Lima, went back to Peru, saw all those friends I met, and that young shaman guy, the friend of mine, he was back in Lima actually, and he gave me some really good advice. I said, I'm going back to America. I have no idea what I want to do. I just know that I want to figure out a way to keep myself healthy naturally. Because by the way, while I was traveling all these countries, but especially in Peru, they really use herbs to heal themselves and food to heal themselves. So, at the time in America, keep in mind, this is like 2004, 2005. Now there's a Whole Foods in every city. People are taking herbs. Doctors are prescribing herbs. And that's how it's been in Germany for a long time. But in America at this time, you go to a doctor and you say you took an herb, they're going to laugh at you right to your face. So, so that programming was still in me, even though I love health food and but I really started to gain faith. I had a stomach ache. Oh, try this tea. Boom, chamomile. My stomach ache went away. I had something on my skin. This grandmother in a remote village put something on my skin. It got better. So I'm like, I told my friend Paco, I want to find how to take care of my health and I want to find a spiritual tradition, because I didn't resonate with this shamanic tradition necessarily. I did, but it wasn't my calling. So he said, find your calling. When you go back to wherever you do, find the one tradition that calls you and stick to it. So I took that to heart, came back to America. Now my mother is selling the house. So that's why I came back, because I had to sort my stuff out, which I wound up getting rid of most of my stuff. And again, I didn't want to be back in America. I definitely didn't want to be back in New York. And I said to myself, but I got to find my I got to find the answer. So I knew about Chinese medicine and I had just heard about Ayurveda, which is the Indian holistic medicine system, which goes back thousands of years. And it's all, and I loved it so much because it's herbs and food. And it's like, oh, food is the medicine. And it was holistic. It involves emotions and breathing. And I kept reading about yoga, and not yoga like we're stretching like most people think of yoga. Yoga is the spiritual path, basically, to connect back with with God or your true self. So I keep reading about how connected that is. So I take a course in Ayurveda, and I'm just reading, and I'm like, I'm never gonna find my spiritual teacher, you know,
Because I'm stuck in America.
because I'm stuck in America, and I was like 25. I'm like, I'm too old. I should have found my teacher sooner. And sure enough, I yeah, like I dive deep into Ayurveda at that point, and just like, how am I going to find my teacher?
Holy moly, what a roller coaster ride. This is amazing. So, um, next time, are you going to tell us if you found your spiritual teacher or not?
Absolutely. That's all. I didn't want to say anything next because that's a whole another story.
And that's the next story?
That's the next story. Yep. I came to
Awesome.
America.
Well, this is
I dive in, and I said to myself, 25 years old, my mother's selling the house. She is just taking all of her anger out on me, like projecting her anger against my father on me. I have no interest in the corporate world. Still have some money saved. Because that's the funny thing about all my travels. I saved up money, and everywhere I wound up spending no money because people would just
wow.
take me in and everything would just work out. And I said to myself, I, since I'm never going to find my spiritual teacher, I have no reason to live. I might as well just die right now. And that's the last thing I'll say.
Oh, man. Yeah, you know how to tell a story, that's for sure. This is great. I can't wait till we get to talk again. Thank you so much, man.
Oh,
This
thank
is
you so
great.
much, John. I've never quite told this story that way. So thanks. You're an
Thank
amazing
you.
listener.